And that's yet another DDG win.
What is up, Dead Draw Gamers? We are back for another Dead Draw Gaming podcast. This week, I am joined by three Team DDG players and a non-DDG player. We got Cal Connor from Team Shuffle Squad infiltrating our podcast this week. And joining him, we've got a kind of returning guest, Gabriel Smart TCG, and Jake Gearhart. And our newest player, Owen Dalgard, a former regional champion, seniors player this year once again. And we are thrilled to have him joining the team for the 2023-2024 season. You missed our announcement on Twitter. We have a big roster going into this year, and we most recently added Owen Dalgard and Bodie Robinson. Both regional champions. Bodie most recently winning NAIC. So a stacked roster moving forward. But I'll go ahead and let Cal introduce himself to our audience real quick.
Yo, what's up? I'm Cal Connor. I'm from the Shuffle Squad. I'm a master. Last year, one of my best finishes was second place at Peoria Regional Championship, and I'm gonna be full-time in Pokemon this season.
Excellent. And Owen, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, for sure. What's up, guys? I'm Owen Dalgard. I was number 6 in North America last year in seniors, number 8 in the world. I won the Knoxville Regional Championships, got top 8 at London 2022 Worlds, and got 3 top 4s last year.
Yes, sir. And pretty much going professional this year too. You're basically gonna play every single regional, right?
Yeah, my goal is number 1 in the world this year.
Let's go. Okay. Gabe, how we doing this week? Coming off your world championships. This is the last time we talked to you. How's everything going?
Things are going good. Yeah. Booked up pretty much most of the upcoming tournaments. I'll be at Pittsburgh as well. For anyone that does not know, if I do sound a little bit weird, I just was at the dentist. So if my facial expressions look a little weird, that's why. But I'm fine. Yeah, no, I'm excited for Pittsburgh regionals. I will be attending. And I booked Lil and Peoria and all those other ones too. So I hopefully will be there barring registration. Been doing a lot of testing with the brand new setup City in Flames that came out last month, and then we got 151 as well to kind of look into next month as well. But yeah, happy to be here.
For sure. And Jake Earhart, how is everything going? You probably just started school and super busy. So
yeah, just started classes this morning, so that was fun. It was all right, but yeah, I'm happy to get out of school mode for a little bit and chat on here for a while.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully you got a syllabus day for a couple days before it really kicks in the gear. Cool. So yeah, like everyone mentioned, we got Pittsburgh coming up this weekend. Super exciting. I think all of us here are heading out at the end of this week to play. I will be playing myself. I'm flying in late Thursday to go play in another regional. Super exciting stuff, especially this is gonna be the kind of first major tournament with the City in Flames that released the Friday of the World Championships this year. Before we get into that though, a lot of news has come out since our last podcast. We've got new point thresholds for qualifying for next World Championship. We've got a new format for how the top 16 race is going to work. And we've got a new announcement on the prize money that is going to be awarded at the regional championships, the internationals, and the world championships. And probably the biggest news of all, the world championships next year is going to be held in Hawaii, in Honolulu. So that is super exciting. I'm glad it's back in the States, even though it feels like a out of states trip to Hawaii. But to start off with, we've got the point qualifications for the 2024 World Championships. Masters is going to be a whopping 600 points. Seniors and juniors are going to be back down at 450. How do y'all feel about this? This is what? It's a 250 points more than last season and about 100 points more, 100 or 50 points more.
200 more for seniors.
Yeah, and what was it, 100 or 50 points more than the previous season? Previous season was 500, I think. So this is about 100 points more. I'll start off with you, Owen. How are you feeling about, I mean, reaching 450 points? How's that feel for the whole juniors and seniors division?
I mean, yeah, I think because of the new local structure, the six BFL, I think it's gonna be pretty easy for most seniors who, play the game competitively, are trying to qualify for worlds, because all they need is to get their six cup wins, six challenge wins, and like a top 32 at a regional. So, it's pretty easy for them. But I think what's more interesting is like the top 16 and the pricing increase for the seniors, because I mean the top 16 is completely different now. Like last year, there was only around like I would say like 20 good players in the United States. So, it wasn't really that much of a fight to get to top 16. But now there's not really as big of an incentive. The big incentive is the stipend instead of the day two. So, I think that's a pretty big change for people who are going to play the game. Like I know a lot of my friends are gonna, back down from playing as much and going to all the regionals just because of the new change.
Yeah, that's a good point. So just to highlight the change in the top 16, for top 16 qualifiers, they're going to get the Worlds invite, they're going to get a travel award, and they're going to get a first round bye. Then for 17th through 22nd place, they're going to get a Worlds invite and a travel stipend. And that is so just completely different from how it's been for the past several seasons. Now we're just getting a round one bye for top 16 instead of what is it, a 7 round bye? You went straight to day
like 7 to 8.
Yeah, went straight to day 2 for top 16. And I'll go ahead and hit on the prize money. For Masters, they pretty much doubled everything, right? So first place is 10K, second place is 7K, third through fourth is 5K. And they're basically giving $1,000 to everyone through 32nd place. And then it's even more for ICs and World Championships. I'll open up to the Masters now. How do y'all feel about 600 points?
I think basically every change they made was in the right direction, and I think 600 points is a lot, and especially coming from someone, I'm in Chicago, so the cups here get like really large, and there's a lot of good players. So even I'm like I think I should be able to get my Worlds invite, but it's like I'll have to go to a lot of events and keep playing. But I think that's a good thing. It should be very hard to get to the best tournament, like the biggest, the most prestigious tournament in the world every year. So I think 600 is where it needs to be.
Yeah, I definitely think that, well, like I think there's a couple things. I think that the prize pool increase makes the point of playing competitive Pokemon not necessarily always to get your Worlds invite, which I think is a good thing. I think that it makes it easier for players that want to, like stay competitive and say, okay, like I want to go to regional championships and stuff like that, but say, okay, like 600 is a lot. 600, we might only have 150, 200, 300 players like that qualify. I don't exactly know, especially with locals, but the amount is going to be like significantly less, and I think that is a good thing. But I think paired up with increasing the amount of CP that you need, also increasing the prize pool, kind of makes Worlds not a only thing to look forward towards, which I think is a good thing for the growth of the game. People, like who want to be competitive can like go to world or can like go to regionals, go to internationals and stuff like that, and say like, okay, like I don't have only one thing to look forward to, like being Worlds, because the prize pools and stuff like that is, like super, super strong. So I think it's actually really healthy for the game. So yeah.
Yeah. For me, I personally am a fan that they raised the point threshold. I thought that 350 was a little bit too easy to get for the last season. I think 600 is a little bit more difficult, but coming up with more locals and being able to get more local points makes it a little bit more easy. So I really think that if you just go to a lot of events and you're going to those regionals, you're going to those internationals, and you're going to those local events, 600 points does not seem unreasonable for someone to achieve. But they have to have like pretty decent finishes at the regional events, like some top 32s, some 64s, and then at the internationals, at least get like some 128s and get some points from those events. And then getting 600 points is pretty reasonable to get for a player. I think 350 was way too easy. You go to a few regionals and you basically have your invite, or a few internationals and you have your invite at the last season. And touching on the prize money, I think it's really huge that Pokemon doubled basically everything. I expected them to up most of the prize money, but I didn't expect for it to be just a complete double in every category. The only thing I didn't like was that 64 didn't end up getting at least something. I thought that they could at least get like maybe $200, $250, $300, somewhere in that like price range, so that you're not just the cutoff between 64 and 32 isn't like $1,000 to just loose packs, which doesn't feel great.
Yeah, it feels like they should have done something to at least compensate registration times 2, which would be like 150 these days, right? So, yeah, and it's also important to point out like the best finish limits for cups and challenges, I think is to be 6. So you can get 390 points from local events. You go to 1 to 2 ICs and 2 to 4 regionals. And you're playing competitively, you have a pretty good chance of getting your invite, like as long as you're actually playing and being serious about it. And it's like 350 points was probably low. But they're basically warrant cups and challenges for that season. So it's gonna be interesting. I think there's gonna be less than like 300 competitors at Worlds next year, which is probably like appropriate, right? If you look at like other like kind of amateur sporting events like CrossFit or like triathletes or shit like that, like they bring in 20 to 50 people from every region across the globe, so you have like 300 to 400 people competing in the event. I think it's reasonable. The prize money is really interesting because it's a lot of money now. Like it's a lot of money floating around. And I think it's really indicative for Pittsburgh regionals registrations. We have like almost 1,900 masters competing in this event. Are y'all at all concerned about maybe the bad influence the additional money coming to the game will bring in terms of people playing for the wrong reasons or taking shortcuts or doing shady things to get some of that prize money?
I think like it's sort of a bad way to look at it in terms of the downsides. Like you would always have, no matter what they do, unless if they get rid of all the prize money, get rid of everything, then we have a decrease in cheaters and things, which would be a good thing. But decreasing the prize money, like the prize money is really what like the prizes in general are really what matter. So just if they're there, and I saw, even I was checking how much I made last year, and I would have actually quadrupled what I made, so it was more than doubled in the 16 and 32 area. So I think it'll definitely bring more. You'll have to be more mindful of people, but if you just watch out, if you watch your opponent play, you shuffle their deck occasionally, cut it always, you should be fine for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's I kind of echo what Jake said there, where it's like we should be looking more at the prize pool increase as a positive than the negatives that it's actually, like going to bring in. I think that, kind of devolves away from like what they're actually like trying to do. And yeah, like it is going to I think there will probably be an increase, but then again, also one of the new things that like judges have been doing is there now are judges that are instructed to go to these tournaments as mentors, and they like help out a lot of like the newer judges and stuff like that. So judges are becoming more experienced more quickly because they actually have the resources to do so as well. So Pokemon definitely has been trying in that sense. But yeah, I mean, like I think it's a problem with like every game, right? But I think it's still more of a positive than a negative.
Yeah, that was gonna be my huge caveat to Jake's point, was it probably is the wrong way to look at it, but unless the judges get significantly better at catching the cheating and doing something about the cheating, it could become an issue, because I can't count how many times there was some twit longer on cheating, and it basically devolved into, well, the judges didn't really do kind of the correct thing there, right? So Cal, what do you think about this whole situation?
I would say the main thing that I want to look out for the next season that I hope is not too big of an issue is people maybe prize splitting and trying to scoop to each other to try to like set brackets, and because the money's
okay.
worth it in
Didn't think of that.
situations. I think I could see people trying to scoop to people. Like, let's say that someone doesn't have a chance of making top 32, and then they scoop to their opponent to try to split the pricing or something like that of that nature. I think that could be a major issue going into the next year, because 64 not getting any money and 32 obviously getting a lot more leaves it so that there's more like desirable reason to do that.
Yeah, I think it's for gameplay, gameplay cheaters sort of. It's really difficult for like a judge. It should mostly it mostly has to fall on the responsibility of like a player to catch that sort of thing, because we don't have one judge per table. Like we don't have anywhere near that. Like on stream matches and stuff like that, of course the judges should be better, but yeah, for stuff like Cal is saying, like the stuff that comes outside of a game, whether it's and even in game, just like handling slow play penalties especially is like the one thing that judges in general probably need to get better at. But yeah, the judges, like yeah, as long as they're mindful of stuff like Cal mentioned, then we should be fine.
Yeah, I think this could be a whole nother discussion on judges that we honestly probably shouldn't get into, but I think net it's probably a great thing for the game, all the changes that they made, and I'm glad that Pokemon in general is moving towards the right direction. They're really taking an onus to make changes and try to improve the circuit, which is great. Any last thoughts, Owen, before we move on to?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I completely agree with like what everyone's saying, I think it's definitely better to look at the good side, and I'm super happy about the prize increase. It's like it's not as big a deal for seniors because they didn't increase it as much, but it's still like a huge deal for people getting top 8. Like it's been moved from like $250 to $750, which is huge. But also I think something that's worth noting is like in the juniors and seniors divisions, like the judges are at like a lower level because they put all the highest judges into masters, right? So
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
yeah, so like a lot of the juniors and seniors judges aren't very like familiar with the game. I've had judges who don't know what basic cards do, they don't know basic rulings, and it's like it's very frustrating, because there's a lot of cheaters in seniors specifically, and they don't get caught, they don't get punished, like nothing happens. I hope judges will be more mindful, and hopefully like there'll be some better like judge teaching program this year.
Yeah. Even with the new prices, I would still be willing to pay $5 or $10 extra per event just to pay the judges. Like, just pay judges to go through a program, know the game, know the rules, and actually have like solid events. But it's neither here nor there. Cool. Okay, so on to this weekend, the first regional of the season, happening in Pittsburgh. It's going to be a busy weekend in Pittsburgh with the Steelers game happening the same weekend. We just got announcements today concerning challenges and cups. There's going to be a challenge on Friday and a cup on Sunday for this event as well. So plenty of championship points to go around. And if it wasn't exciting enough, it's going to be the first weekend for Obsidian Flames in a major event. We've already had, I think, 2 weekends so far, 1 or 2 of Obsidian Flames at Cups and Challenges. Not a whole lot of results out there to go off of, but there are some. So off the bat, I just like to cover, because we're kind of talking about this before we hit record. Let's cover Charizard. We've got a new card, Charizard EX. It's a stage 2. You evolve it from your hand. You're able to attach 3 energy from the deck. And it has an attack that does 180 base for 2 fire, and you increase 30 damage for each prize card that your opponent has taken, which stacks quite nicely to 330 total damage if your opponent has taken 5 prizes. So around the horn, what are we thinking about Charizard heading into this weekend? And let's start with Jay, because I think he had the kind of hottest opinion on this before we got started.
Yeah, sadly, I think Charizard right now is completely unplayable. Like, I wouldn't even consider it for the tournament, honestly, because of 60 HP Charmander. It's so bad against every Lost Zone deck. You basically don't have a win condition except for just like rush all your stage 2s out, hope you get an insane hand and go first, get battle VIP pass, turn 2, candy up everything. But yeah, with 60 HP Charmander, it's way too abusable. And also Giratina, like your HP, your 330 HP, which is why you play the card, doesn't matter at all against that deck because they have Star Requiem. So I think in general, like the Charizard decks could also be built quite a lot better than they are right now. I've seen some ideas and have some of my own, but I'm not investing any more time into it until 151 comes out with the 70 HP Charmander.
I guess I'll go next here. I think Charizard is like pretty underwhelming. I think like I would not be surprised to see one in top 16. I would not be surprised to even see one maybe make it in the top 8 if they just, kind of hit all the right matchups. I think it's kind of similar to Gardevoir. When Gardevoir was being played at EUIC, there was a lot of players who didn't do well with it, largely because their list wasn't refined. And then we saw Tord, kind of show off, hey, this is probably how, we should be building the deck for the future when he got second place at that tournament. So I think the kind of disappointing thing is Charizard has everything to be good. Like it has, like Charizard's ability is insane. And the attack is very strong. Arceus V-Star paired up with it is just very, very good. It has all the tools. It's just the metagame is just not right for it as of right now. And I do think that the Lost Zone matchups are really bad. Like Lost Zone Giratina pretty much just runs them over. Like you have to deal with paths. They can Requiem. They can, one-shot Pidgeot or Arceus. The deck loses the path a lot of the time as well. And the deck is a little bit more inconsistent than I think people say. You pretty much always have to get the Arceus out to even do anything. And if you can't find it, the deck is just really, really clunky and inconsistent. And also, I feel like if players know exactly how much damage like Charizard can do, they can, pretty frequently like play around it, like recognizing it can only do like 180, 210, 240, 270, et cetera, et cetera. So like if they know exactly, like the damage caps, you can pretty much create a board state to where you can just go one shot, one shot, one shot. Even with things like Palkia V-Star, which you can just kind of abuse the fact that they do next to no damage early game. So yeah, I think the deck is okay. Like it has a decent engine, but its matchups just aren't very good right now.
Yeah, I agree with Jake and Gabe, honestly, at some of those points. Like one of the most important things about the deck to me right now is that the Charmander is a 60 HP. So against those like Lost Zone decks, it's just able to combo knock out 2 Pokemon at the same time. And then Pidgey also being 60 HP just is a recipe for disaster. So kind of if you like go second, you get, a Pidgey and a Charmander out, you get hit with a Sableye turn 2 against like a Turbo Lost Zone deck or a Kyogre deck, and then you're just in a bad spot. Also, your deck's very vulnerable to Path of the Peak. So when you get Path of the Peak, sometimes your deck just does not function because you have to use that Arceus's ability, you have to use the Pidgey ability, you have to use the Charizard's ability. So all your abilities are really kind of functioning around not getting Path of the Peak. So you really need to use your Stadium to try to get out of it. But then your Stadium is also your card that you're using to try to set up with the Artisan. So you're kind of like put in a hard spot where it's like, do I put my Stadium down to like actually set up my like bench more and like be more in this game? Or do I just not, so I hold it so that I don't get past the peak and kind of lose? And then also what Gabe was touching on is that the deck kind of just falls short by 10 damage, which is kind of funny because it does fall short of 10 damage by the Charmander as well and the Pidgey, because it kind of hits those odd numbers like 210, which we really want to hit 220, and then hits 270, which all V-Star Pokemon typically are 280. So hitting 270 is a rather awkward number that you want to be hitting 280. So it just kind of hits those odd numbers. I don't think the deck is bad though. I could see like maybe some being in 16, some in 32, maybe one squeaks into top 8, but I don't see it really in top 8. But I could see like some making 32 and 16. I think it's just like a deck that is very like reminiscent of the other Arceus decks, where it just kind of attacks and it kind of does what it does and it just sets up most of the games, and it doesn't really have a super high ceiling, in my opinion.
Any other thoughts, Owen?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like Charizard is so susceptible to path. Like it's kind of like Lugia, where like your opponent could go path judge and you just don't draw out of it and you instantly lose. And that like, I mean, any deck that has that problem is like, it's super bad because that's like one of the like main lose cons of Lugia. and it's made Lugia like so much worse than it would be without like stuff like Path and Judge. But I think in general, like the deck has potential, like especially the card Charizard EX, like it's super powerful. Like, I mean, searching your deck for 3 energy and just instantly attacking or attaching them is insane. So I think like as new sets release, they'll probably like add some cards that can synergize with it pretty well. So I think it's definitely something to like look forward to in the future.
Nice. Okay. I'm just gonna run down. So I've got Played Out Limitless pulled up. We've got 16,000 matches with Obsidian Flame so far. I'm just gonna run down the top 10 decks so we can get kind of a broad feel for everything that we might see this weekend, right? So Giratina Lost Box, Charizard, Gardevoir, Chinpao Excalibur, Lost Zone Box, Rhydon Flappy, Arceus Giratina, Fusion Mew, Single Strike Lugia, and to round it out, Inteleon Urshifu. Why don't we touch on Giratina Lost Box next? This seems to be the kind of hot deck online for the past few weeks. I don't know if it's just because they're countering the new Charizard deck very heavily with a quad path count, and just be able to run through stuff with Giratina. But what are y'all's thoughts coming into Pittsburgh with Giratina Lost Zone? Is it is it going to live up to the hype this weekend, or is it overblown and just a online phenomena that's not going to translate into a IRL event? Let's go in reverse. Why don't we start with Owen this time?
Yeah, so I think Giratina, I mean, obviously it's a really good deck. I mean, there's a reason tons of people are playing it. There's a reason we're seeing it do well. But I mean, we're definitely going to see a lot on like, top 8 and top tables, and on stream we're going to see a lot of Giratina, but I feel like it's just like the deck is kind of susceptible to like a lot of things. It's a lot more clunky than regular Lost Box. Sometimes you draw bad and you can't get out of it. It does have like the incredible attack Abyss Seeking, which is kind of like a mini chorus that you can use on turn 2, which is pretty good. But when I play the deck, I feel like, it does have the best matchups, I think, like objectively in the format right now as a deck. But I feel like there's no matchup where it really like excels super high. Like it's pretty 50-50 in a lot of things. I feel like the Lost Box matchup is not the best. So, it's definitely a deck I consider. It's a deck I think is really, really strong, and it's definitely a deck I worry about, but I don't know if I would play it personally.
Yeah, my opinion on Giratina is I think that Giratina is pretty solid. I think it's the most neutral deck in the format. I think there will be a lot of people playing Giratina to this next upcoming event just because it's kind of like Lost Box, but except it's just a little bit easier to play. Your attacks and your lines and your lines to win are just more easier to recognize with the deck. So for newer players, it's more of a deck that kind of fits their play style. With Turbo Lost Zone, there's so many different attacks and lines and stuff that you can do that it makes it so that Giratina kind of is just a little bit easier of a deck to play. So I think Giratina is very solid. It also has Path of the Peak. I think Path of the Peak is very strong in this format. It's one of the strongest cards for sure. And it has Disruption and it has Sableye. So there's a lot of cool plays that you can naturally just do with the Giratina deck. And it also has like the one-shot capability. It has everything you can really ask for in a deck. It has Disruption, Path of the Peak, one-shot capability, comboed with quick attacking with maybe like a Cramorant and stuff like that. Just the deck sometimes gets those awkward, weird, bad hands at the start where you're kind of fumbling on your deck and you're just trying to really like get into the game. But I think the deck's very solid.
Yeah, I think that Giratina has the best matchup sort in the game when it gets going. However, does it get going? That's the big problem that it does have. Kind of what I think of it as is it's, Turbo Lost Fox minus like 8 cards that are, considered consistency cards. Like you cut like 2 to 3, 4 Seal Stone, you cut, vacuums, you cut, like Pokestops and Artisans, and you just replace them with, a bunch of Pokemon. So you pretty much just replace a bunch of consistency cards with inconsistency cards, which can sometimes cause issues. However, when the deck does get set up, I think that it has decent matchups against mostly everything except for Turbo Lost Fox. That matchup is still really, really scary. But I do think that it can be, pretty difficult to beat when it hits hits that, turn two loss impact. I've had some games like at League Cups and stuff like that where I've hit that turn two and I'm just like, this is the greatest deck of all time. And then I've had those other games where I don't hit Chorus till turn five and I'm like, well, why am I even bothering playing this deck? So I definitely think that the deck is going to perform well. I think that the amount of players that are playing it, and I think that definitely a good percentage of them are going to translate, somewhere probably into top 256, top 128, top 64. And I do think a couple of them will like really pop off. Like I don't think it's too off the wall of a prediction to say that Giratina is the most likely deck to win the tournament, because I think someone is going to just draw insane with the deck. And when the deck draws really well, which is kind of the thing in question that holds it back, it's just really difficult to beat. So I think Giratina is definitely tier one. And has some of the most pop-up potential in the format as well, which is what I think makes it so that it probably will spike at the tournament and see a lot of success.
Yeah, I think Giratina is like the most fair, unfair deck there's ever been. You have two one-hit KO attacks, two snipe attacks, Path, Judge or Roxanne or Iono, a turn one attack, a consistency attack on turn 1-2. But the problem is, that like it has consistency issues, and it also has like sort of resource issues going into the late game. Your attack is really expensive, lost owning 2 energies from play, and in order to fit all these like insane cards, the deck has to cut down on some of the resources that it could want if it wanted to just attack more like carelessly. So you have to play it well, and also like you're basically playing this pile of like insane cards, but you only get access to like a random assortment of them at different points in the game. So yeah, if everything goes your way, then you have every access to everything that you could ever want. But it's just kind of playing through those messy hands, messy like lost zones. That really determines how well you're going to do with the deck. So I think it's a really good play. It's a really good deck, and it's a really skillful deck if you play well.
Perfect. Okay, so next question. What are y'all's top 3 decks going into this weekend, and which one would you pick if you just wanted a consistent deck to kind of not necessarily win the tournament, but just kind of have the highest probability of getting a high placement, maybe capturing that top 64, top 32 placement that you'd need to get yourself well on the way to qualifying for Worlds next year? And why don't we just reverse it again? Start with Jake.
Okay, yeah. So I think my top 3 are probably Giratina or Lost Box. Like Giratina or Lost Box kind of are the top 2, and then probably Gardevoir is the third. But I also think Mew is really, really good right now, and people aren't going to respect it. I'm like doubting that we'll actually see any like high number of Spiritombs or Drapions in decks. I don't know why, but people just seem to never commit. But we aren't in Europe, so I guess Mew can't do well. But if you just want a solid day 2 finish, I think Mew is the safest bet. Honestly, it's consistent. It beats like it's decently favorable into Giratina, which is going to be one of the most popular decks. And yeah, you just can't go wrong with it. Like as long as you dodge the counters, you should have a fine get a fine finish with the deck.
Just to follow up there, how is Mew changing if at all, with Obsidian Flames between Worlds and this event?
Well, I think people are probably like overestimating Charizard, so that might make Mew players like a bit scared of it. But I don't think, as long as you just survive the first few rounds without hitting Charizard, you'll just run into lots of decks that haven't teched for you because they think Charizard's going to wipe you away. So I'd honestly just take something really close to Vance's Worlds list, and just that's all you need to do well with. There's also like a surprising amount of Rapid Strike going around right now, which is a great matchup for you. So you could just take advantage of those. They can beat the Charizards for you, and then you can beat them.
Good strategy. Okay. Gabe, I think.
Sure, yeah, I'll start off here. The best deck to just get points with. Well, I would probably say, or to like do decent with. I think that like this is gonna be an interesting answer. I think Miraidon is a deck that like you don't necessarily have a whole lot of control of being able to like outplay your opponents. However, the deck pretty much always does what it needs to do. We saw Sageman Park get top 32 at Worlds, actually lost his win in, I think, the top 8. And then we saw Andrew Mahone also get top 32 at Worlds. So the deck showed itself to be like pretty decent. The deck doesn't necessarily have the greatest matchups across the board, but what you lose in matchup strategy, you gain in consistency, which I think is very nice. And I do think the deck is a better Judge Path deck than something like Arctina, because Arctina is a deck when they draw like Pumpkaboo or a Stadium Bump to something like the Path to Peak, the deck feels very weak. However, Miraidon just has the ability to go 360, 360. So even if they, find an answer to the path, I think that, you kind of just have the ability to outpace them. And the deck pretty much always does what it's supposed to do. So I think that if you're looking for a deck that might not necessarily take the most amount of skill, like compared to something like, let's say, Lost on Toolbox or something, like you just kind of want a deck that, like is a safe choice. I would say that Miraidon is something that's a lot more of a safe choice, or even something like Chen Pao, even, decks that when they set up, they're really, really good. And they don't necessarily go into like very specific matchups, say, oh, like I'm gonna win this matchup, bro. Like I can't win that matchup, which I actually think is the problem with Urshifu and Teleon right now, because that deck, either like goes into a matchup and says, sick, like this matchup's great, or I have absolutely no answer to them. And I think that's the problem with something like Urshifu and Teleon. So yeah, I would say that Miraidon and maybe Chen Pao are good, like safe picks if you, don't want to think super, super hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I would personally say I think that Turbo Lost Box is a safe bet. If you know how to play Turbo Lost Box or the Lost Box variants, kind of like Kyogre or Turbo, I think that the deck's positioned pretty well. And it gives you the best capability of having the game in your hands in this scenario, because you really get to make all the decisions with your deck. Yeah, sometimes you do just burn out and you don't get the right cards that you're looking for. But most of the time, the game's in your control and you're able to loss on the specific cards you want. And it allows you to try to like map out your perfect way to win. So that's why I really like the Lost Zone decks. I think that they're very fair, and I think that Lost Zone is a very safe bet at it getting points. As long as you kind of know what you're doing with the deck, you can probably secure at least points with Lost Zone.
Cool.
Yeah, I think my top 3 decks would probably be first, probably Gardevoir EX. I've been playing it for a while. I'm pretty confident with the deck. Probably number 2 would be Lugia. That was my play for Worlds. I played the same 60 as Gabe, and although I didn't do great, I still feel the deck is really strong and also pretty consistent. And probably number 3, I agree with Cal. I think Lost Box Kyogre is super strong. Like one of my favorite things when playing decks is getting to control the game. And I think Kyogre, like you get to completely control the game as long as you get like a good start off the bat. You get to run through and you get to set the game's pace. But consistency wise, I think my pick is probably Chempao Palkia. I really like the deck right now. It's getting a lot of play at my locals. A lot of my locals love playing Chempao. And I feel like it's a really consistent deck. It sets up really well. Chempao is pretty consistent, with the Irida, Battle VIP Pass, getting the water energy off of Chempao, Radiant Greninja. And I feel like when that deck sets up, it's super strong. And a lot of decks don't have like immediate answers to it.
Okay. Very diverse answers there. And it can be my last question of the night for Pittsburgh. If you want to win the event, what are you picking, Owen?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely my goal. It's not that unrealistic for me considering I'm a senior. So, right now, I think probably if I want to win the event, it's probably going to be Kyogre. But I'm going to be honest, I'm not very confident in the Lost Zone engine. I played it once to a regional. I played Lost Zone Garantina way back at the start of the season at Salt Lake, and I got top 8 at that regional. But I'm still working on my skills with Kyogre and Lost Box in general. So if I feel confident with the deck, that's probably what I'll go with.
Cool. Cal?
To me, I think that To win a regional, you need a lot to kind of go your way, and you need to hit the right matchup. So for me, if I was trying to like 100% win the event, I would say I would probably go with a deck like Rapid Strike Urshifu, because I think that you hit the right matchups, you hit those matchups that you want, you can really control those matchups and try to make sure that those matchups are the ones that you're winning. And then, the Mew matchup and is really, it's unfortunate. It's not a good matchup for you. I don't think the Guacomo and the Spiritomb really beat it. So I would much rather just play other cards to try to shore up those other matchups and make sure that, the Giratina feels good with the Echoing Horn and stuff like that, and make sure that the Turbo Lost Box feels even better with the Horn. So I would just try to make sure that you dominate those matchups. And if you hit the right matchups and, get a good like top 8 bracket, you can go all the way. Kind of like Cyrus.
Yeah, if I was trying to win the tournament and take a risk, I don't even know if it's like that big of a risk, but I would say Fusion Mew, just because Fusion Mew beats Lost, or it's favored in the Lost Zone Giratina, which is probably going to be the most played deck, and on top of it as well, it takes good matchups into decks that should see plenty of play, like Inteleon and Urshifu. That deck's been getting a ton of hype recently, being like doing like really really well at like local league cups and challenges, pretty much all throughout the world. And does decently against just a lot of other things. And it just kind of has that like explosion aspect where like if you just like pop off, you beat pretty much everything. So I think that definitely one person will I think make it into the top 8, maybe 2 of them with Mew, because there's just going to be someone that just runs insanely hot. And I do also think kind of like Urshifu and Talion, it's pretty matchup based as well. Like sometimes you sit down and like they flip over like an Arceus, or they flip over like an Urshifu, and you're like sick. That's an easy matchup. But so I think that creates a situation where someone could just hit all the right matchups and also run hot and just completely dominate the tournament with Mew. And like maybe they dodge the Spiritombs and stuff like that. And if all the stars align, I would not be surprised at all if Mew won.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird. It's like there's like a curve of the decks you'd play if you just want to get like some points, and the decks that you want to play to win the tournament are kind of the same decks, because they're usually like pretty matchup based decks. Where on this end, you're like most likely gonna hit enough of the good matchups to get some points, and on this end, you need to hit all the right matchups, but that'll let you win the tournament. So yeah, I think like I personally I wouldn't play Mew, but I think Mew, like I agree with Gabe, sort of or Rapid Strike, any of those like high risk, high reward decks, like matchup based high risk, high reward. Those are like the ones for winning. But if you're aiming for like the like between top 32 and top 8 range, I think Lost Box is always the best play if you know how to play it well. It's like a pretty it's a deck you have a lot of control over. So and it's consistent. It sets up most games. It does the same thing most games, but the situations are very intricate, and you can put your opponent in a lot of tough places by playing well. So yeah, that's what I would choose going into that range, sort of.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for tonight's podcast. I'll go ahead and let y'all, plug your coaching or socials or whatnot. Before I do that, thank you so much, Cal, for joining us tonight from Team Shuffle Squad. Super sick of you to join us for this evening. And I want to start with Jake, because on top of your socials, any update on the PTG Sim project? Is there anything?
Yeah, I can't give any updates right now, but we're still working on it. It'll come out. It'll come out eventually.
Okay.
But yeah, you can follow me at Twitter at Jake K Gearhart, and I'll post updates when we have anything to update.
All right, sounds good. Gabe, then Owen, we'll let Cal finish this off.
First off, I'm honestly kind of happy the game's not out yet, because it shows that there's been like genuine work and stuff like that that's being put in, because with so many cards and stuff like that, things can glitch and go wrong. So I'm okay like waiting even like another like 6 months to a year if I know the product that's going to be coming out is good. So regardless, yeah, you can follow my socials at smart tcg. Pretty much everything is that. Twitter smart_tcg, but the rest of that is that. Shout out Deadjar Gaming as well, my sponsor. I write articles on Cutter Tap, and if you're interested in my coaching as well, that'll be in the description too. And yeah, no, thanks for having me.
Yep. Owen, do If you want to.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's just my name, at Owen Dalgard. You can follow my dad. He's trying to qualify for Worlds this year. It's at Panomics, Panomics S. And also a huge thank you to Ryan for letting me on the podcast today. I appreciate you.
For sure. Yeah. Owen's dad may well be the next member of DDG. We'll see. Cal.
You can find me on Twitter at Calvin Connor TCG. I'm also on Metafy at just Calvin Connor. And I'm from the Shuffle Squad, so shout out to the Shuffle Squad, and then shout out to DDG for the podcast as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and you can check us out, deadrawgaming.com, all your singles, sealed, all that good stuff. And Cutter Tap is our article website. We've got all our team DDG players writing over there. We've got article from Hunter Butler last week. I just posted a article from Piper Lapine today. Christian LaBella's article is going out tomorrow, and then we're going to wrap out the week with another article from Hunter on Thursday. So ton of stuff on Cutter Tap if you want to get well and prepared for this weekend. But with that, thank you all so much, and thank you to our viewers. Good luck this weekend, and we will catch you next time.